What's up? Welcome to the World Hard Enduro podcast, where we are dedicated to following the world of hard enduro. If you are a dirt bike lover or just interested in following the World Hard Enduro Championship, then this is the podcast for you. In this episode, we'll be looking at the Red Bull Romaniacs, interviewing the mastermind behind it all, Martin, as well as going into more detail about what juniors are entered, as well as some of the females that are entered into this crazy race. We hope that you guys enjoy this episode.
Red Bull Romaniacs is here, the 21st Limitless Edition, kicking off on July 22nd or 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be one hell of a week, not only for spectators, but I think also for anyone traveling to Romania to watch, as well as, and more specifically, for those who are going to tackle those Romanian mountains.
That's right. This is the second rally race for the Hard Enduro World Championship. The first one was the X-Cross Hard Enduro Rally in Serbia. Now we're heading over to Romania to watch the guys fight it out for 1 day of street prologue and then 4 days of riding in the Carpathian mountains. Man, it's going to be a long, tough one. And I think some guys are going to have a tough time out there, but some of the guys ride really well in these types of conditions.
Yeah, that is a long week of riding. I have to say it's by far the longest event I've come across. And there's a certain someone I know who's riding. Big balls to be heading over there to partake in that. So good luck to my co-host.
Yeah, thanks, man, Chris. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to heading over to Sibiu in the next couple of days to try my luck at the Red Bull Romaniacs. Myself and one of our friends, Kevin, we're going to be giving it a good hard try, a good old college try. And let's see what it's all about. They say that this race is for the dirt bike and hard enduro lovers because you're spending so much time on your motorcycle. It's really one of those races where you have to enjoy riding your motorcycle to really enjoy this event. So I enjoy riding my motorcycle. Definitely going to be fun when it's done, but let's see. I'm going to try and enjoy it throughout the process as well.
Yeah, hey man. I mean, the title of the event fits you perfectly. Dirt bike lover. And yeah, man, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting to hear stories about it. Hats off for stepping up to the plate. I know it's going to be challenging, but as you say, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun when it's done.
So there's a lot of guys just like myself that will be traveling to Sibiu in the next couple of days. And for them to get a better understanding of what they can look forward to inside Sibiu and inside Romania, we've got a really cool interview with the mastermind but behind the Red Bull Romaniacs, Martin himself. This guy has got an incredible amount of history and time and effort put into this race, and he's got some really cool tips and tricks and just some ideas of where Romaniacs began, where he started riding off-road motorcycles and where his passion began for you inside this interview. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll touch back as soon as we're done. Martin, thank you for taking the time to talk with us here on the World Hard Enduro podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, so it's exactly 1 week out until prologue begins, actually. And how are things going? I'm sure you're pretty busy at the moment.
It's not that bad because Red Bull Romaniacs is a 1 year project for us, and pretty much after the race is over and as soon as the signs and markers are down from the forest, we start building the new tracks, scouting for new sections, do the authorizations over the winter time, prepare the logistics over the winter time. So it's a process that is well planned in advance. So of course the last week is not it's not that we are getting bored, but it's also not that we are extremely stressed out, and there is not really anything that is not running as planned, so I'm pretty relaxed.
Yeah, cool. So you're a rider yourself. How did you get into riding off-road motorcycles?
Oh, I always liked bicycles, motorcycles, and when I turned 16, I got myself a little like what you could ride legally in Austria these days, motorcycles. Then I made a driver's license and I bought a 350 XD, which was off and on road use. So that was pretty good for traveling, but also just going crazy into the forest. And then when I already started my snowboarding career, I ran into some KTM bikes, like 250 in early 90s. And that, of course, then started to make me going into this extreme enduro direction, because as I was used to go up mountains and down, especially going down the mountains, I also wanted to do the similar thing with the motorcycle. So the goal was always to just go somehow get to the top of a mountain that doesn't have a road.
At what point did you come up with the idea for Romaniacs? I guess you're the mastermind from what we know. You're the mastermind behind it. Like, what made you think of this idea and then put the plan into action?
Okay, that took a while. So for my first enduro competitions until Red Bull Romaniacs, there were many other events that I took part in. So beside my snowboard career, whenever I could, I went to some motorcycle events, be it motocross, be it some field crosses, be it the classic enduros, enduro cross. I also have been to some rallies. I've been racing the Morocco rally in Africa back in '96. So I had a variety of different motorcycle enduro competitions. And then when I came to Romania, actually I started organizing off-road tours in Romania. Romania is very unique. It's very, it's a little bit behind time, because especially for after Second World War, everything which was behind the iron carpet was a bit delayed with the development. And while the Western countries developed kind of like the States, the Eastern countries developed more in the direction of Russia and these countries. And that slow development also made it more easy to ride enduro in the Carpathian Mountains here, because they are not really populated. It's very quiet here and very remote. So perfect for enduro riding. And so I first tried to organize off-road tours, and after I've been doing this for a while and I got to know the whole country, I realized actually I can do here a competition that eliminates all the negative factors that I experienced in the other competitions. Like the classic enduro competition, you need to be more of a mathematic in order to not get too early, too late, or whatever in the points, and study all the rules. The enduro crosses had this typical acceleration and braking bumps, which are not really enjoyable after 2 hours of riding. The rallies always had huge liaisons where you had to go 3, 4, 5 hours on asphalt before you went into the desert. So also, and when I've been here in Sibiu in Romania, I realized I can organize a competition which has kind of a rally character because the country is so wide. It has difficult terrain, so it can be a combination of rally and hard enduro. So it gives everybody who comes a lot of riding, not just heavy sections, but also enjoyable, nice, flowy trails and good views. And you can start pretty much from the hotel. So out of the hotel in Sibiu, around the corner, we have already had the start. So that was just perfect. I went with this concept to the owner of Red Bull, and he said, okay, yeah, let's talk to kindergartner. And we said, okay, let's partner up and make it happen. And already the first year was something special, even though we only had 30 participants. And now we have 64 nations. So seems like the concept works out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really good insight to where it began to kind of where we are now. And you touched on going to different events like rallies as well as other hard enduro races. I think this year you've gone to a few different races like Erzberg. I don't think you raced though, but you were there taking notes and maybe just spectating, as well as you've been to Roof of Africa and to some other races around the world. Are you taking like good points or specific points from these races and then adopting them into the Red Bull Romaniacs, or is it just for your own fun or your own time to go and race these races?
Yeah, both, of course. I mean, if I'm going to another race, I first of all I go because I want to enjoy myself competing, and
Right.
like the Dakar, I've been lucky enough to race the Dakar on all three continents. I've raced the last year in 2007. Then I went over to South America. I've been racing over there, and I also finished the Dakar in Saudi. So and you know, you always learn a lot at other competitions. Sometimes from what other organizers make good or better than you, and sometimes from things that they mess up. And if you see something being messed up, you know this is what you don't want to do, so try to avoid it. So the learning factor is always there when going to other events. Of course, not every event is the same. An event like Herzberg is on a much smaller surface than we do Romaniacs. They have to fight with other problems like way too many spectators on a small space. So they have a lot of logistics handling that. Compared to like we have our hard job is getting hundreds of authorizations because we are riding on so many different communities, so many different forest owners, and so every event has its own challenges.
Right. And I think that's what makes the Hard Enduro World Champion so unique, right, from others, is that you can go from Erzberg, which is a kind of a one-day flag-to-flag style race, and then you go to rally style, which like X-Cross and as well as Red Bull Romaniacs, which is 5 days or 4 days of outdoor riding where it's quite brutal, you know, from what I've seen. So we now in the 21st limitless edition for the Red Bull Romaniacs, what can the riders and also spectators expect to see from this race this year? And like what differences can we see from last year to this year?
We are making small steps forward year by year because the riding level is growing incredibly. The material is getting better, tires are getting better, mousses are getting better, or whatever systems people may use, tubeless or whatever, and bikes are getting better. Servicing is going up, and therefore we also toughen up a little bit the racetracks, also in all classes, and I think this is what makes the biggest difference between Red Bull Romaniacs and other competitions. That we have 5 different classes. So at the Dakar, for example, you have one class, and when the winners are in the finish at 10, 11 o'clock, the amateurs are still fighting until dark and come back at midnight. And at Red Bull Romaniacs, we are challenging every rider in his skills, in his level, and I think that makes a lot of sense because that way. The gold class riders are challenged in their heavy stuff because an Atom rider couldn't even do the first 500 meters and he would be at the step where he can get up there. On the other way, the gold class riders would be bored if he's doing the easy tricks that an iron class rider is doing. But of course, the iron class rider is spending 5 days per week in the office and just rides on the weekend. Yeah. And the professionals are doing the other way around. They are riding 5 days and chilling 2 days.
Right. At what point does this does your track setting difficulty like reach a limit? Like I guess speaking about the 21st limitless edition, it's probably not the time that we're reaching a limit. But at what point do you think to yourself like, okay, this is pretty technical or probably not rideable? We're not going to put it in because I think that the level is just getting better and better each year, as you said, with the tires and the riders. Like, do you see a point coming where people or you as an organizer will be like, okay, I think we've reached that limit of the track difficulty?
Mm-hmm. We have never had a section that hasn't been ridden or tested or at least been pushed. So if we are not able to push our bikes up a hill, then we can't use it. Of course, it may take us 2 hours sometimes, and then the professionals come and clear it in 10 minutes. We know that, but if we can't get it all up, then we usually don't use it because we still want to have some sort of a riding. Yes, also sometimes the professionals have to get off their bike and give it a push before they continue sitting on the bike again. But in general, it's about riding the bike and not about pushing it. And we have a lot of good riding track managers. So we are a crew of approximately 25 good enduro riding, and pretty much everybody is also competing in wherever they come from. We have a bunch of Kiwis here. We have South Africans here. We have people from Austria here, from England, from Australia, so from Colombia. So a very international team that is supporting us with all the marking, with the chopping of clearing the track, and of course also test riding. And they come back with feedback and say, okay, don't you think this is a bit too heavy? Or like at this place where bronze is going, we widened up the trail so they're not sliding down. And the track director Deo is giving them advices how to prepare the sections that he knows that can be critical for a race class. And so step by step we prepare the track. And I would say the most critical point is actually alpine danger. This is what we need to be most careful with because the riding is so good these days, the bikes are so good, so the terrain gets steeper and steeper, and it starts to we need to focus much more on alpine danger than on the bike riding itself. That there can be no rolling rocks, that there is nothing that could hit the rider below down. So this is some of the most important topics that we are taking into consideration.
Right. You're speaking about your staff, or how many people from all over the world are helping you with track setup and that. How many people do you have in your team actually to make Red Bull Romaniacs a successful event?
I mean, when it comes to the race, it's approximately 500 people that are helping as marshals, as rescuers. I mean, we have over 100 kilometers per day racetrack. We have a bunch of rescue crews and cars, on 4x4s, on motorcycles, helicopter, and so on. The whole media crew, the content creation team, all the marshals, all the for every road crossing we need to have somebody securing, and so it adds up, gets a big amount of people.
Yeah, and so for this year, we are doing 5 days of riding. So we've got prologue, street prologue, which is an enduro cross track, and then 4 days of out riding. Who sets up the enduro cross track for you guys? What I've seen, I haven't been yet. I will be joining this year, which I'm very excited about. But the enduro cross track looks pretty hectic, and it looks quite interesting. Who's setting up that track? Who's the mastermind behind that track?
Yeah, so the mastermind behind that is Andy Fasakas. He's my friend from back in the days from snowboarding. And he's actually also the creator of this kind of competition, because back in 2004, there hasn't been any city prologue. And as I come from professional snowboarding, and I knew how few spectators we had on some events that were high up on the mountain, comparing with some show events that we did in Paris, in Vienna, and so on, where you had thousands of spectators combined with music bands and so on, like festivals. And I thought the situation with the enduro sport in a country like Romania, where people don't know the sport, will be the same. So we need to bring the sport to the people, because the people won't come to the sport in the mountains. And I personally was considering some sort of a third race in the city, like using the river banks or a park or something like that. And when I told my idea to Andy, he said, no, I have a slightly different idea. I want to do it on the main road. And I was like, oh, he said, yeah, just let me do it. And then, he was very creative in organizing. Of course, money-wise, it was difficult in the beginning. So we organized a bunch of tree logs, a bunch of car wrecks, and what he tried to do is to bring enduro elements from the forest into the city. And the movements that you need to do in the forest into the city, like sometimes, in the forest you need to go under a tree or things like this. So those were all the kind of ideas that he wanted to implement in his prologue. So our prologue is not as flowy as a super enduro one, because it's more related to hard enduro than to motocross. And the elements are more based on how you need to tackle your bike, sometimes lower speed, because it's about tackling the terrain.
I think that's a really good explanation, because what I've seen is like some of those off-camber sections where you're kind of sliding your bike into the sand pit and things, which is something that you would see in a hard enduro, especially out in the mountains, I'd guess, inside Romania. So I think that's a really good explanation. And then, so we've got the prologue done and dusted. Then the guys go out for 4 days of pretty crazy riding inside the Carpathian Mountains. This year, I think what is a little bit different is the liaison sections, right? Can you tell us more about what the spectator or the riders can expect with regards to the liaison sections?
Yeah, we wanted to... so as I explained in the very beginning, we usually started out of the hotels. That was back in 2004. In the meantime, Romania is part of the European community. National parks were invented in that time, and the area got a bit more restricted. So we cannot use as much terrain close to the city anymore as back in the days. So we have to spread out a little bit. And therefore, in the past years, it happened quite often that the riders had to go by car for half an hour somewhere outside to then start racing. And we wanted to come back a little bit to the original concept of trying to minimize the distance of liaison and ride it on the bikes and not by car, because that minimizes the waiting that, for example, if you're in a team with 5 friends, the first rider who arrives at 12 o'clock has to wait until the last one comes at 5 until they can move their vehicle. So we tried to keep that distance very short, and except on the first day when we have like 20 kilometer where you need to ride on the road, all the other liaisons are pretty short. It's like 4 or 5 kilometers outside the city. We already have the off-road start. So I think that makes it just easier for the participants.
Right. I think that's also really good intel for the guys that are traveling there now, that are entered into the race. I think that's something to look forward to, not having to wake up and travel hours to get to the start of the off-road day. I think that's really cool. You were speaking about now the constriction or the limitations with regards to using land. Do you find that like creeping in a little bit more now, later down the line? Like, is your ability to use land still available, or are things starting to clamp down a little bit more?
It got much more difficult, because times are also changing here. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this communism movement, which has been here in the country, back in the days when you went to an owner and told him the mayor gave the okay for this area, the owner said, okay, yeah, go. Nowadays you say, the mayor has nothing to say on my property because it's my property, so you got to deal with me. So things like this have changed, and many more things got private, which things back in the days more property was public, and it was easy because you have been talking to a city hall and you already covered a big terrain, and now you need to go to more authorities, to more owners and so on, and it's kind of a question of manpower from our side, or the reason why we cannot have an organizing an inscription fee of just €100 or something like this. It's very intense what we need, the time that we need to put into the whole planning, into the whole organizing, to have 5 secured days with all the permissions on the table, going over 1,000 kilometers through the Carpathian Mountains.
Right. And something that's new to Red Bull Romaniacs, well, I think about 2 or 3 years now, is the marathon stage, right? This is something that's also included into this year. Instead of camping, though, it's a hotel marathon stage. What's the idea behind that? Is that also just so that you can travel further in one direction and then stay the night, then travel back, so that you are using maybe different trails and different sections? Yeah,
exactly. That's the idea, to get further away from Sibiu, to explore new terrain, and of course it also gives a special spice because it makes it a bit tougher. You need to be a bit more careful with your bike because there is no mechanic in the evening that can exchange all the parts you broke. So you gotta ride a little bit more clever, but the main idea is to get far away from Sibiu.
Right. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you're allowed to change tires on day 2 service point and then also day 3 service point in order to try to allow yourself to do any part changes or tire changes during that marathon stage, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can change the tires in the service point. So there is also a longer. Usually the service point time is 20 minutes. Sorry.
Right.
And on those 2 days, though, day 2 and day 3, it's increased to 30 minutes, so you have time to change the tire.
Right. And then for the spectators, man, these are the guys that truly make the sport also quite magical, right? Just to watching the sport and to bring more eyeballs to the sport. What advice can you give to spectators that may be joining this race that want to get a really good kind of experience, Red Bull Romaniacs experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the spectator point maps are up on our website, and you can make yourself a plan what you want to see, what class you want to follow, which rider you may want to follow, and then see per day 2, 3, 4 spectator points depending on how close they are to each other. And we're also describing quite well at what time a rider will arrive at this spectator point, also related to earlier checkpoints. So you can look into our live timekeeping on the website. For example, you want to follow your husband. What time did he pass at checkpoint 3? Okay, and then from checkpoint 3 is 40 minutes to the next spectator point. So okay, I'm still in time. I can go and see him there, or I have to go to the next spectator point where I see this rider then.
Right. Do you suggest those spectators to rent a car, or are there any shuttles or anything like put up in place for the spectators to get to the points?
A majority of the spectators are actually Romanian locals, so they have their own transportation. The Enduro scene has grown pretty strong in the past 20 years since we do Romaniacs. And yeah, foreigners usually use rental cars. That's the easiest way how to get from point to point. It doesn't really help much to go on a motorcycle, especially if it's on rainy days. You're quite happy to have a car.
Yeah, for sure.
and we don't allow people going off-road these days because it might interfere with the competition, and that is a clear no-go.
Of course. And you spoke about rain. It seems like every year there just has one day that it has to rain, right? Do you predict the same thing happening this year, or what are your thoughts going into this year?
I mean, honestly, I hope it will rain. The best would be on the first day, because at the moment it's extremely dry and it will be dusty. So it will need some rain. It looks like there is some rain coming a bit before the race, and I hope it's just not too much and not too few.
Right, cool. And then my last question is, do you have any insider tips for racers and riders? I'm sure a lot of them are listening to this on their way to Romaniacs. Pretty got the nerves going, the butterflies in the stomach. Do you have any suggestions or tips or tricks for them, for the new riders as well as existing riders, for the 21st limitless edition of the Red Bull Romaniacs?
No, I think the most important is just to take it easy, to don't stress yourself too much, don't push too much. We also see that in the accidents, like on the first day, we have usually the most accidents because everybody is so hyped and going way too fast. And then on the last day, we have hardly any accident because people realize just take your time and ride and get to the finish. And of course, you cannot sleep. You need to keep a certain speed, and you can't rest too long, but also not go too crazy. And
sorry, tire choices or anything with the tire? Like you said, it's quite dry and dusty. Do you think that will affect any tire choices for the riders, or do you think just gummy tires, soft mousses all the way still?
Yeah, soft mousse is always a nice to have, but except in the gold class, they don't need to be too soft. And we have X-Grip and Blues tires in our paddock, and they are doing a very good job. We're using these tires as well with our track managers when we are preparing the racetrack, so everybody can do the hill climbs and the downhills with these setups.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. So I think that wraps it up for us. Thank you so much for your time, Martin. It's really been cool chatting with you.
Safe trip to come over to Europe. Yeah, looking forward to meet you in person. Hello, this is Martin Freinademetz, organizer of the Red Bull Romaniacs Hard Enduro Rally, and you are listening to the World Hard Enduro podcast.
And we're back from that super cool interview with Martin. We can't thank him enough for taking the time and effort to join us on the podcast. And I'm sure that you got some really cool insights, as I did, from listening to the man himself. One thing that he pointed out and explained very well is the idea of the Super Enduro, so the prologue on day one. You would think that it would be more flowy and more in line with the Super Enduro World Championship style of track, but it's quite clear that that's not the case, right? Like, they want to try to replicate what happens out in the mountains, and it's quite clear it's obvious when he says that, and then you see what they build. It's like, okay, yes, I can actually see where that comes through. So really cool explanation for the prologue.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really cool that, the prologue, where it's come from, like the whole idea and how it's like evolved. And I think that it's also like just the perfect event to really let the spectators see, more of the racing, the riding. It's like, it's going to be in your face. And actually, speaking about spectators, I thought that his point about being able to like track the riders and to see, okay, which rider, whoever you are following, got to what checkpoint, and you can kind of determine the time between checkpoints, or like the estimated time. I thought that was awesome, because then, for me as a spectator, I can then also gauge, okay, where do I need to try to be depending on how quick you are riding and how long it takes to get there. I think that that's an awesome plan that they've got kind of in place for spectators.
Yeah, super interesting. Also to hear about his background, where he's come from, the years that it's taken to get to this point. I mean, somewhere he mentioned in there that he also used to snowboard, which is quite cool. It's interesting to see how diverse all of these people are that come to these events, their backgrounds, and what leads them all to this single place. I think that it's carefully thought out. There's quite a few things that were new to me. I don't know, Brandon, if you can tell me that this is a regular thing. I think it was for day 1 and day 2. He said no moose or tire change.
Right. So inside the mandatory service point, you cannot change your rear wheel or your rear tire. You can change mooses. But then on day 2 and day 3, inside these mandatory service points, as he said, they will be a bit longer. And then you can change your tire due to that marathon stage. In the marathon stage, we're all going to be staying in the hotel. All the riders, so amateurs and pros alike. There's no mechanics there. There's no teammates. There's no teams there to help with any mechanics or any issues that you may have on the bike. So there's just going to be a lot of helping out, I think, in between the guys with what they've got in their bum bags, the tools and the spare parts that they've got in their bum bag. So that spectator point, or that service point, is going to be on day 2, is going to be quite strategic, because if you've broken something on your motorcycle and you think that you need to change something inside that marathon stage, you have to carry that on your back or inside your bum bag or whatever, so that you can do that in the nighttime. So it'll be interesting to see what the guys actually do. I'm not too sure they're doing oil changes and that, but it'll be interesting to see what they're going to carry with him.
Yeah, that's a super a point that you touched on there. Like, how valuable is it going to be sleeping with someone in a hotel who knows what they're doing? Like, for me, I'm pretty clueless. Cannot change a tire. Don't trust myself to change a tube either. So imagine you were stuck with me in a hotel and had to rely on me. I think that would be devastating. So hopefully that's not the case there.
I'm so glad that we're not running tubes, right? Because our score streak on tubes is so terrible.
Oh my gosh.
We're like two every two
No,
tubes
it's
out
like
of 3.
four out of 5 tubes get pinched.
That's madness. Yeah, I'm done with tubes.
But speaking about tires and speaking about mooses, I think this is the perfect transition into speaking about the 2 sponsors of our podcast, which is X-Grip and Blues. And to be honest, they're both going to be there at Romaniacs. And I think the best thing is that, we love both brands. We love their products. But I think as riders and as customers, you have the choice. You get to choose, you get to make the decision, what do you like, and for them both to be there, what a perfect setup for the race, right?
Yeah, they really come in strong, supporting the riders and giving the riders opportunity to choose. As you said, competition is a good thing for us as customers, because then we have the ability to pick and choose and figure out which one actually suits us the best. For myself, I'll be riding X-Grip for the Romaniacs race. I'll be riding Jack the Gripper Soft, the 140/80/18. And then also either the Machete front tire or Hulky Boy. I'm not too sure just yet. I'll do some testing on Saturday and Sunday and see which one I prefer.
Let's get into some facts about the race. I think that now we have some, insider tips and insider information, but let's just get to the nitty gritty of what is Romaniacs even going to entail? What is the next week of racing? What are we looking at? So starting on, I would say, the 20th and 21st, this is, I think, maybe also the 22nd. These are the main days where you have the event inscription. So the riders are going to come, they're going to register, they're going to get, all of the information kind of sorted out and, find out exactly what's happening for the next couple of days. On the Monday, they also have the opening ceremony. And if I'm not mistaken, for this opening ceremony, the riders get to kind of ride their motorcycles through the city, carrying their national flags. And if I'm not mistaken, there are 64 nations, which I think is the most international event that they've had in Romania, which I think it's crazy. Martin mentioned that in the first race there was only like 30 competitors, and to go from 30 competitors to like 64 nations, that is just wild, right?
That's really cool. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Romaniacs is the most international hard enduro championship race inside the year. So, I mean, between that and Erzberg, it'll be quite close. But yeah, that's quite cool to see all those different nationalities and cultures come together, languages.
On Tuesday, July 23rd, we have the prologue. Now, I know generally what a prologue is, but I'm not really sure what to expect from a Romaniacs prologue. Can you Brandon, explain to us a little bit more about what to expect?
So essentially what Prologue is, it's a time trial which seeds the riders for the start of off-road day 1. The riders will do a time trial on the Super Enduro test, which Martin mentioned is more catered and more styled towards the movements that you'd see on the off-road riding, so in the mountains. The top 35 riders in the bronze, silver, and gold will then enter into the main race. Their finishing position in this main race will then give them their starting positions for off-road day 1. First rider starts third, second rider starts second, and third rider starts first. So then again, we speak about the dynamics of starting first to starting third. Iron class also does a time trial, but they do not have a race, and this is completely optional for them as well. So if they do choose not to enter or ride the prologue, then they start based on their as issued a number that the Romaniacs officials give to them.
That makes more sense. I didn't actually know about the if you finished first, you only start in third, or I guess you get to start in third. I didn't know that was the setup actually. So I think that's really interesting. So now we have an idea of obviously prologue. Can you tell us a little bit more about the off-road days? And I know that there's like a marathon stage, so explain a little bit about that as well, please.
Yeah, so off-road day 1, Chris, you got nice legs, bud. So off-road day 1 is basically your first taste of the Carpathian Mountains. I know from what Martin has spoken about in the past, they usually make day 1 and day 2 quite tough. So usually you see the toughest days then, because they really want to kind of thin the field out as soon as possible. The off-road day 1, what is different from this year to previous years, as Martin mentioned, is the liaison. So now it is possible for the riders to get on their motorcycles in the morning and travel the 20 kilometers or maximum 20 kilometers to the start of the off-road day, and then begin that off-road day round about when their starting time is. What used to happen in the past is that the guys, let's just say we're part of the team like FM Racing, we riding with FM Racing, and some guys are in the gold class and some guys are in the bronze class and the atom or iron class. the Atom and Iron class, they start later in the day, but everyone would have to travel together in the bus if you didn't want to ride your motorcycles. So that's what Martin meant, is that if you are coupled with a gold rider, which is starting 6 a.m., let's say, and you're an Atom rider that's starting at 11 a.m., you have to wake up at 4, make sure that you're ready and on the start line at 6 for that gold rider to go, and then wait at the start of the race, and then you have to wait until 11 o'clock to when you're going to start your day. So that's a really cool situation for this year. So if your start time is at 10 and you've got a 20 kilometer liaison to get to there, then you can leave, let's say, 9 o'clock on your motorbike, and then you cruise off to the start.
Yeah, that's a lot more ideal than waking up early.
Was that a clear explanation?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Chris, you okay? So that's off-road day 1. Then we go into off-road day 2, which is the first marathon stage. Chris, what is a marathon stage?
A marathon, I believe, is a long run, longer than a half marathon. So a marathon stage sounds like a stage of marathons. Yes.
How many kilometers in a marathon?
Around about 50, plus or minus. Take it or leave it.
And in a half marathon?
Half of that. So about 25, I would say.
You're not far off.
I'm not.
So the marathon stage is basically, we'll be starting, so we'll do a liaison from Cebu to the start of off-road day 2. Then we travel, let's say, plus minus 100 kilometers due north, south, east, or west, one of the directions. I'm not too sure where we're going.
Yes.
And then we sleep there for the evening
Oh, with your mates.
with my mates.
Okay.
And
good time.
if you were joining, we'd like bunk up and we could change tires and put tubes in.
If
Wow.
Chris was riding, that is.
Yeah, if I could change a tire or two.
Yeah.
As well. A lot of things.
Then
A
the
lot
next
of factors.
then the next day we wake up and then we do a small liaison to the off-road day 3, to the start of off-road day 3, and then we travel all the way back to Cebu.
Okay. And for those of you that don't know what a liaison is, it's actually the short track from where you wake up to where you start. That small piece in between the A to B.
So to put that into a layman's terms,
Okay.
work is the start of your race.
Start at work.
You start at work. So your
okay.
liaison is getting up, getting to work. That's your liaison. And then when 8 o'clock hits, then you start your race.
That's the start. Oh, good explanation.
I think that
Brilliant.
probably better than
No,
mine.
listen, that was a good one.
That
was
works,
good.
right?
Probably better
That
than mine.
works.
Liaison. Explain. Then off-road day 3, we travel back, right? And
Correct,
then we
you.
will meet up again because Tara and I won't see you on
You won't see me.
day
I might
off-road
see
day
you,
2.
but you won't see me.
Exactly. And then, then we have off-road day 4, which is the final day. We're going to be tired and, I don't know. We'll see, actually. I'm not too sure what to expect, I must be honest. I know it's going to be tough, though.
I'd like to talk a little bit about who's entered into this race.
Right.
First of all, I'd like to mention that there are 8 women entered into Red Bull Romaniacs this year. Correct?
Yeah.
We
Wow.
have 2 women in the silver class, which is Sandra Gomez and Kirsten Landman.
They're braver than me, that's for sure.
They are, because they entered into silver. We then have Tassa, who is in bronze, and I think that, she's coming off on a high from the X-Ross race, so I'm eager to see how she performs. Brandon, she is your competitor, so I'm
That's
eager to
right.
see how you perform too.
Oh,
No
no
pressure.
pressure.
Then we have 4 ladies in the iron class. We have Lisa, Nicole, Julia, and Carolina. And then we have Helena in the atom class. So ladies, we will be looking out for you. I'll be looking out for you. I don't have binoculars, but I'll be using my eyes. Hopefully you have a good race. For the juniors who are entered into the Hard Enduro World Championship, they are kind of split between the gold and the silver class. So in the gold, we have Hugo, Barnabas, Mitch, Safsella, Ashton Brightmore, Robert Crayson, Valentino Hutter, James Moore, Lenny Goretzky, Richard Morehouse, and Luca Maximilian Franz. Then we have a couple in the silver class, which is Leon Voland, Turbat, Purabat, and Auguste Pascal.
So I spoke when we were inside Indonesia, I spoke to Tobat, and he said this is his first Red Bull Romaniacs. He was telling me that the reason why he entered silver is because it's his first go at it. And also just to explain the point system behind this, because now they're all fighting for points, But the way that it would work is that gold triumphs silver. So your gold finish triumphs silver's positioning. If you finish the gold in last position, you are then put above the guy that finishes first in silver class in the point situation. So that's how it works. So it's very strategic from the guys, like let's say James Moore or any of the guys that are fighting for points. All they really have to do is finish in order to beat those guys in the silver.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I think something else that is worth mentioning is how, Romaniacs has kind of come on board to support these juniors, because we know that it's not cheap to get to Romaniacs. Enduro riding, hard enduro riding, it's not a cheap sport in general, right?
Yeah, we know this.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that it's really cool to see, and I think to recognize that the juniors who have entered into the Hard Enduro World Championship, I think got 50% off of their entry, just to help kind of curb those expenses and try to get more of them onto the start line and participating in this race.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's the future of our sport, right? So to get these guys to these races, get the experience going, is priceless, I think, at the end of the day. But my big question, Christopher, what do you think about Manuel Lettenbachner?
I was actually about to ask you,
right?
What, where, when, how is he racing?
I wouldn't be surprised if he on the paper, on the entry sheet, it says that he is racing, but who knows actually whether or not he will be there at the race.
Correct.
I think it's confirmed, actually. I saw a press release from Romaniacs saying that he will be there. So look out, boys and girls and ladies and gents and all you gold pro riders. Manni is back.
So if I'm not mistaken, this will be his third title, Red Bull Romaniacs, in a row that he is going for. So he's going for his hat trick.
Sure. The big dog's got to eat, eh?
So that's Manuel Lettenbachner. But I think the guy that we are probably most excited to see is the man, the myth, the legend himself, the silver fox, crouching tiger, Paul Bolton.
Paul Bolton.
Paul Bolton.
Oh,
I want to know, what are your predictions on good old Paul?
I predict that he's going to run away with it. He's going to provide us with exhilarating action cam footage. I expect him to probably get over 15,000 steps as well, and probably shotgun a beer close to 5 p.m.
I actually heard from a pretty reliable source that when Paul enters into Red Bull Romaniacs, he actually starts 4 days before the race even begins. So his Red Bull Romaniacs is an 8-day long race. Yeah, so and it's a reliable source, and he's already done the track once.
He's done it, yes.
And then he's doing it again for the second time, just for the shits and giggles.
Just for fun, eh?
Yeah.
Just for fun. It's all fun.
With a generator. powering the Liet Live Maniacs, which is the way that as a spectator that is not in Romania can watch and keep up to date daily with live broadcasts, interviews, and also some really cool sections of the track.
If I'm not mistaken, there are about 8 cameras that they've got set up, and they're supposed to be like pros who are spectating like throughout the live coverage. So I think, obviously the last time that we had this kind of coverage was Erzberg, right? But this is a multi-day event, so it's going to be really interesting to see. Obviously I will be there, so I won't necessarily be watching the live, but for the spectators who are watching the live, it's going to be super interesting to honestly do a bit of a comparison, I guess, because Red Bull were the ones covering the event for Erzberg Rodeo, but now for Red Bull Romaniacs, it's the Liet Live. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the coverage and how it works. But I definitely think that it's a cool thing that they've got going. I know that we'll post a photo here on the screen with basically just like what you can look out for with regards to this live transmission, the Live Maniacs. I know they've got like the opening ceremony, prologue, finals, and then they've got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then the final hill climb on the Saturday. So it seems like there's a lot that the spectators can tune in for. And if I'm not mistaken, you can find these links or the live information on the Red Bull Romaniacs website.
Awesome. I think that's going to come in handy for me. I'll definitely be reporting to you guys and giving my 2 cents on which broadcast I preferred. But I'm also going to be keeping an eye on you, little lighty. Any slacking from you?
Crystal will know.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to be able to spectate from the other side of the world. Unfortunately, I won't be there. I'll be with my feet up, working hard, slaving away in Thailand. So,
It's tough going out there.
No, listen.
What I've heard, it's hard work out there.
oh, you wouldn't last. You wouldn't last.
That kind of brings this episode to an end. We think it's really cool that people actually listen to this podcast. And if you are in Romania at Romaniacs and you see either Brandon or myself walking around in a World Hot Enduro hat or a World Hot Enduro shirt, please come say hello. We'd love to meet the people who actually listen to the shenanigans that we speak on an almost weekly basis. And until then, don't forget to
Add gas.